Hello and welcome to another episode of Not Too Deep. I'm your host, Grace Helbig. I am thrilled to say that we have Michael Judson Barry on this episode of Not Too Deep. He's an actor, comedian, character performer, an all-around incredible human being. You might know him as the creator and star of Quarantine Time on TikTok. He does Moira Rose maybe better than Moira does. He's even been recognized by Catherine O'Hara for his impressions. We talked a lot on this episode, so sorry if I'm a bit tongue-tied. We had just such a lovely conversation. We learned about how his mom, as a clinical psychologist, has influenced his theater and performance career, what he is doing on TikTok, what the future holds, and we answer some questions on how you can best serve yourself when you're confused after graduation, on whether you want to pursue your art degree versus your more stable psychology degree. It's all here. I'm rambling. Enjoy this episode of Not Too Deep with Michael Judson Barry. Michael Barry, we're going to get right into it, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, you are an artist, and people that wear many hats that, create in different capacities. I like to start off by asking them, how do you describe what you do?
Oh, how do I describe what I do?
Just a really easy question to start off the whole tone of this podcast.
Great. I have such a good answer for this. Describe what I do. I'm an actor, and during lockdown, I mostly did theater, and there was no theater. And so I accidentally, kind of like as someone would fall downstairs, somehow created this sort of like Schitt's Creek parody show called Quarantine Time. So now that's what I do. I have this basically short sketch series on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube called Quarantine Time, where I do Moira Rose as well as the rest of the Rose family, and sort of their misadventures on life in lockdown.
It's lovely. And also, it's just one of those things where it seems like you're having the best time doing it. So I can imagine that it's just like, you have to pinch yourself of like, this is my job now, technically, is to do this.
Yeah, it still feels weird to say this is my job. Like, now that the world is reopening, I'm meeting people and they're like, so what do you do? And I can't bring myself to say I'm an influencer, because I now know influencers, and I've been to events with influencers. I'm like, I don't think that's what I do. They're so much trendier and cooler than I will ever be. So it's like, I'm an actor with a show on TikTok.
I like that.
I've never felt so old in my life saying that.
Well, okay. I have so many questions for you about TikTok, because I'm in the process of trying to understand it. But I've resisted it for so long, just because new technology, it makes me tired. But I also understand the appeal of it. And like, my For You page is literally just like women in the Midwest, like moms getting day drunk. So
I want your For You page. That sounds awesome. Mine is a mix between like opera singers and like cats, and then like castles.
The musical, like, or the animals?
Both.
Okay. Well, okay. Let me go back in time a little bit, because you have a BFA in Theater Arts from Boston University and an MA in Classical Acting from the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, which sounds dramatic to say. Tell me about that experience. So you get your BA or BFA in theater, and then you're like, not enough. I got to go to London and get more.
Yeah, well, my journey, I'm so ADD, and this is my problem. So I got my BFA in theater arts, where I studied acting, primarily acting, and then went and did a casting internship in LA on CSI Miami, because BU has this program where you can go to LA and actually study the industry, which most, drama schools don't teach you about auditioning and how the real industry works. So I interned on CSI Miami, met my friend Melissa DeLizia, who, shout out, just got nominated for an Emmy for Pen 15 for casting. Yeah. I'm so proud of her. But she was the assistant. I was the intern. We're still good friends. Anyway, I digress. But I grew to really love casting. And so I spent most of my 20s sort of bouncing back and forth between acting and casting.
Interesting.
Which was great. So I always had sort of a parallel career, because I was always nervous about like, what if I wake up and I'm 60 and I'm, so I wanted to have other skills in general. But the problem with that then is I didn't become super successful in either because I kept switching. So finally, and I did work, like I did the National Tour of Spamalot. I did a lot of theater, but, and worked on some amazing shows with Melissa and some other great people. But yeah, so hit a point where I was like, I really want to, I think I need to give acting 100% and I need to go back and get more training, and somehow got into Lambda's master's program.
Wow. What's the like the application process? Do you have to audition?
Yeah. So it was a series of auditions to get in. And that master's, what I liked about it was it's all classical text. So it's mostly Shakespeare, but then for the theater nerds out there, it's like Jacobean and Restoration tragedy, and, you know, so all classical text, which I'd never really studied. So it was terrifying. So I felt like, you know, for a dancer, it'd be like going back and getting a master's in ballet. You know, it's sort of like doing the broccoli, as some people called it. But it was really fun. I was shocked I got in because it's a big drama school in the UK. And also just living in London was magical. I was at this weird point in my life where I wasn't happy with myself. I was very sad, you know, so I kind of, some of those moments I was like, I needed a big kick in the pants and a big change. And I was like, I'm just going to move across the ocean to another country and study Shakespeare for a year.
Wow.
And it was incredible. We would have workshops on the Globe, you know, on the stage at the Globe Theater. And, met some really incredible people. So it was magical. I recommend it to anyone and everyone.
I mean, are you writing your book currently? It sounds like an incredible experience. I'm always curious about someone that has a theater background, that you must have experienced some questionable or experimental theater in your time studying the art. Is there anything that stands out to you that you can remember that you've seen with your own eyes?
That I've seen or was in?
Either.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I mean, not questionable, I guess, but things where you're like, what am I doing? I was in this one play, which actually was a really beautiful play, but it was very abstract. And it was the first sort of abstract play I did it. And I played this. I had this one scene where I played like an Italian lifeguard who has to come on stage and save this woman. And I'm wearing a Speedo. And right before I go on stage, I had to stand in a baby pool and have people dump water on my head to get me wet. And it was freezing. It was like the ice bucket challenge before the ice bucket challenge, but backstage, and come on stage. And then I rescue her and we make love on the beach. And the director at this, who's actually really successful, she's a big director, and it was a cool move, but she had this thing. She was like this vision of they make love underneath a giant jellyfish. And so that, like a metaphorical jellyfish. And so we had a parachute that was sort of a translucent sort of white colored jelly parachute that the rest of the cast stood around and sort of billowed above us. And instead of like having a full like sex scene, because she didn't want anything graphic, we covered the leading lady in strands of pearls. And I just was under this parachute, which was billowing above me while I'm just rubbing pearls on our leading lady. Apparently it was stunning for people who watched it, but when you're in it, you're just like, okay, I'm rubbing pearls on this beautiful, her name is Rupa Adi, she's an amazing actress. And I was like, I'm just rubbing pearls on Rupa while a jellyfish parachute pulses above me.
Wow.
But apparently it was very moving and beautiful for the audience.
I can't imagine.
It was fun. So I had that.
I love that you're like, let me think. Oh, here's a very specific memory that I have.
Oh, yeah, I haven't thought about that in a while. Or we had one, I had a true actor's nightmare. You know, like you have those nightmares where either you book a show and you don't know the lines or something. I was doing this one musical, it's a brand new musical, it's the world premiere. It's called Some People Hear Thunder. Yeah, this is called, about the Armenian genocide. So this very serious, amazing show, kind of like they're trying to make it like the next Les Mis. Okay. And it started with this huge production number at the beginning of the show's 10-minute number that had constant key changes and rhythms, all these people coming and going in a train station. And the night before this one show, when all these Broadway investors were coming to see, the assistant to the writer took the score from the music director because she wanted to scan and make an online PDF of it because they'd made so many rewrites through rehearsals. He was the only one with a full copy of the score. Okay. And even the musicians in the pit, we would always just get our pages. We didn't have a full. So she scanned the whole thing, but then put it back in the wrong order. I don't know how. I think because she was overworked, she was exhausted. It was like probably 4 o'clock in the morning. Poor thing was probably half asleep. Put it back in wrong. But the first couple of pages were right. So when we went to do the show, he just checked the first couple pages. He was like, okay, we're good to go. It opens with this brief little scene. And then the lead guy, he starts to sing. Luckily, he has perfect pitch. And I give him his line for the music intro, and no music happens. Because the director realized that the music was not in the right order. And he only had the first couple of pages of the song. And so he just starts singing, and we just start singing. And thank God he had perfect pitch. And so we come in the right key, and all of a sudden music just comes in.
Wow.
And like, because I want to say, like, the trumpet player was like, I remember I vaguely played these notes here, and I think this is where they are, and the trombone would just come in. So we did this whole 10-minute number running around the stage, just singing with music just sporadically playing. At one point, I had to run backstage to enter on the other side. I run past music director. He's just throwing pages in the air, screaming like expletives. One girl in the cast starts to cry, and I had to push her on stage because she was like, I can't. The whole audience is looking at us like all of their heads are tilted, and that like, is this on purpose?
Right,
thing?
exactly. That it's
because
like,
it looked like some crazy abstract number.
Right, but like when you go to the theater, you have to suspend your disbelief of like, this is purposeful.
And it's
so
the first song.
Yeah, you're the asshole if you're like, this sucks. This is not right.
And at one point, like, some people started singing because they thought they were supposed to come in, and they came in at the wrong time because the other ones thought they were on a different wavelength. So all of a sudden, the whole song, somehow we all ended together. We plant ourselves center, we sing the last notes, and the music just slowly peters out because they're like, like, I guess we're done. And the director was actually in the show. So we're like changing the set for the next scene. And I had to bring a chair on because this was where the actors move the set. Yeah. And he comes running on. He's a lot like Nathan Lane. So imagine Nathan Lane comes running on stage. He's like, stop the production, which I've never been in a show that stopped. And he was like, stop, what's going on? And our stage manager comes over in front of the audience, stops the show cold. I'm standing center stage holding an armchair, and I just freeze. I'm like, what's happening? And all these Broadway producers and investors are in the audience, and they're all sitting right center. And I'm just looking at them, and they're like, what's happening? In this very serious show about a genocide. They're like, what?
My God.
The stage manager comes over the God mic, and she's like, Kevin, stop. We're figuring it out. And he just stops. He just looks at the audience. He's like, live theater, ladies and gentlemen. And then just like, vamps, and he just starts telling stories from his theater life. And then she comes on, she's like, we figured it out, where do you want to go? And he goes, these people deserve a full show, let's go from the top, and walks off. The music comes in for the opening number, but the problem is at this point the whole cast has now changed their costumes for the next song. So everyone comes sprinting back on stage in the wrong costumes, but we do the whole number again in the wrong costumes, but at least with music. And and then from there, the audience loved it, though. They lost their minds. And the whole rest of the show, anytime a song went well, they were like standing ovation. They were like, they did it.
Honestly, that's kind of a brilliant tactic to be like, everything can only be more appreciative from here. This has been a shit show off the top, and everything is going to be wonderful from here on out. Get your checkbooks ready. I mean, I would Venmo all of my investments to the director.
Right. And what I'm saying, it is a really beautiful show about this very serious subject matter. So I'm glad that the rest of the show went well. And that cast, like, we're sort of forever bonded because we all survived one of those. I'll never forget the girl though backstage just crying, and she's like, "You can't do it." We're like, "You can."
I know, that feels like an episode of Glee all at the same time. That's incredible.
So sorry, long-winded story. Again, I haven't thought about that one in a long time.
I mean, again, get your book ready. Write these down. These are fucking fascinating. Well, okay, on that note, you're involved in this kind of, chaotic production that has a lot of people involved. And then you go from that in quarantine to making stuff by yourself on TikTok. Like, what's that experience? What's that shift like for you?
It's been amazing. It's been a real learning curve because kind of, I guess, like you, my friends call me grandpa because I don't know how social media works. Once all this got going, like a friend had to get on FaceTime and walk me through how to use Twitter so that I could tweet a response to Justin Buttigieg because he wanted to see a video. So like, I was like,
it sounds like a Mad Lib sentence.
How does this work? Like, I don't know how these things work. And that's why like I don't have cool special effects or trends. I tried to do a green screen. It didn't work. So I just created a arts and crafts background once. So it's been this amazing learning experience because I feel like I'm the definition of imposter syndrome, where I'm having success on something that I still don't know how it works. But the great thing that's come out of it is this sort of newfound sense of confidence, because I'd done improv before lockdown, a lot of improv, but I'd never had sort of the confidence to create my own work. I was always told I was funny, but I never thought I could be a writer. And I never thought I could sort of helm my own thing. But when you're in lockdown and it feels like the world's ending, that's sort of the ultimate time to take a big old sort of like, fuck it pill. And just say, try it. It's like, what's the worst that can happen? So it was sort of an inside joke at first. And then the second video I did got a few thousand views, which for me is a lot.
Yeah.
And so I had a friend call me who does drag, and he was like, if you're going to do this, Michael, brush your hair and maybe get more wigs. And then my mom called me. Yeah. And then my mom, so I'd never done drag
the
either.
Wigs, everything. Yeah.
So like I started with me and my sister lent me some clothes that were black.
Amazing.
She was like, I just borrow anything of mine that's black because I'm working from home anyway. Yeah. And then my mom called me and she was like, Michael, please the beautiful thing about Schitt's Creek is how positive and hopeful it is. And that's what we all need right now. So make every video positive, make every video hopeful.
Your mom said
and so
this
it became,
to you.
Yeah. She's like, if you're going to do this, make it positive because that's what we want. Yeah. And so that became my quarantine challenge, whereas like every couple of days I would make a video and it would be about something different. And it would always be about something that I personally or people I knew was like struggling with in lockdown, but finding the silver lining in it or like finding the positivity. And it's like, how can I take this negative thing and grow from it? Or like, how do I find the best of it? And so it became very therapeutic in a way. Because when I genuinely was really sad, I had to write an uplifting video, which just made me feel happier. And then I got this amazing confidence booster. I was like, I'm having success writing something and making something that's all mine. I'm not relying on a director or a writer or somebody else to make, or an editor. I still don't really know how to edit videos. I kind of like, I do my best. It looks great
to me.
Thank God for Splice. That's like idiot proof. So it's like that sense of accomplishment of doing it all on your own. And I'd never had that before. And so I feel like I walk a little bit taller these days. Even like when I order coffee, I feel like even my vocal quality is different. I'm like, I would like a nice decaf coffee because I get too jittery when I have caffeine, as opposed to like before I'd probably be like, I like decaf because I'm a wimp. It's sort of like I have this new sense of self. That's been really incredible to come out of this. And at the same time, I'm having an absolute blast. Like I crack myself up writing these things.
But that's the thing,
all
right?
These characters are so brilliant.
You have to be your own performer, and you have to be your own audience. Like you have to create the things that you want to see on the internet. I just love so much that your mom is helping you curate and craft the tone of your series, that she sees the potential.
And it was such a good note at the beginning. And I was like, this is so right. Keep everything positive. And that's what my sister calls me Mr. Rogers with a wig. Because now most of the people who follow me are like a lot of moms who watch me with their kids, and they like use my videos to teach their little kids vocabulary. Because my vocabulary is so crazy. So they'll watch my video and then look up the words after.
Wow.
And so that's also like really cute. So it's almost evolved into almost like a little kid show. And I actually have a good friend who she was like, I love it because I feel like I'm watching a children's show for grownups.
Yeah.
And she was like, it's like an ASMR thing. She was like, your voice doing the accent is weirdly soothing.
Yep.
And I've had people to me, they're like, I was in the hospital for 6 hours and I just binged your videos because it brought my heart rate down just listening to the voice. So I guess it's a testament to Catherine O'Hara for creating that brilliant accent.
Yeah.
That people find just the thought of it so soothing that it calms them. So it's, so many different
side effects by accident of just doing something that you genuinely enjoy. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and never thought would go anywhere. I was bored and my roommate had a busted old wig from a Halloween costume. I never dreamed that this would. I would end up on your show.
I love it.
And now here I am chatting with you. So you never know. That's why I feel like people know. It's like, just try, I spent so much of my adult life being too scared to try anything.
I think that's truly the most beautiful message. And we're going to, I want to get more into that in a second. We're going to take a break really quickly. And we'll be right back with more Not Too Deep. I love this conversation. So we'll be right back. Not Too Deep with Grace Helbig. Hi, friends. Grace Helbig here from the podcast Not Too Deep, which you are currently listening to, hosted by me, Grace Helbig. Just wanted to say a couple of things. One, thank you so much for listening. And two, if you are enjoying yourself to such a degree that you'd love to leave us a review on the Apple Store, that would be so appreciated, because again, you are very appreciated for giving us your time, your ears, your attention, whatever it may be. And that was my couple of things. Now back to me. Okay. Michael, we have to talk about a lot of things.
Mhm.
First of all, I'm curious because I think I read an article that you did an interview in Untitled, and you had talked about that you're not, super well versed in doing impressions, but which is, ironic because this impression has become this like cornerstone for the content that you're making. How, first of all, how did you get into doing this impression? And second of all, are you working on any others?
Yeah. So I think, well, with the impressions, 'cause people are like, "Are you an impressionist?"
Right.
And
Yeah, that's the
like Christina Bianco,
expectation.
like those kind of people.
Hmm.
And I was like, not really. But I think I was when I was young. So I grew up. I'm a huge nerd, and I was a big
Join the
old
club.
movie buff. Right when I was a kid, like my mom showed me Arsenic and Old Lace and Harvey, those two old black and white movies when I was 8 years old, and I was obsessed. And
Wow.
so I grew up watching a lot of those old screwball comedies, and then I got really into the Carol Burnett show
Mm,
and Laugh-In and those kind of things. And so I would memorize the bits and I would do them. And then I got really into Robin Williams, and
yeah.
he does all those like wacka voices. And so I would memorize his bits and then like do them at dinner for my family. And so I think, and Monty Python too, like I was a
Yes.
huge Monty Python fan. So I'd memorize their sketches. And, it's like, there's some lovely muck over here,
And
like,
then you get into the touring spam a lot. That must have been a fucking
yeah.
mind
Oh,
blowing experience.
dream come true. Like I had a moment on that tour when Eric Idle came to see the show when we played
Oh,
LA. And John Dupree, who wrote the music, but Eric Idle, obviously I grew up with it. And he came
yeah.
backstage and he went after the show. We were terrified to perform for him, obviously, because he'd
Yeah.
written Spamalot. He walked right up to me and he was like, I was the first person. He walked straight up and he was like, "You need to know you're very funny." And I was like,
Oh my
and I
gosh.
was 24. I just like, so I'm pretty sure I peed just a little bit. And luckily my costume's huge, so no one knew.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I was like, well, I can retire now.
Yeah.
Um,
Done.
So up until Catherine O'Hara said I was funny, and then I was like, great, now I can really retire.
Yeah.
Two of my idols. But anyway, but yeah, so as a kid, that's why I got into doing voices.
Who's like, is there, I mean, you're recognized by Catherine O'Hara, which is just so incredible. And
Yeah.
I'm sure just so affirming on so many levels. But then I wonder, is there like an expectation now that you have to have other characters in the works or other like ideas for stuff kind of cooking right now?
So that's the thing, because before this, especially doing improv and stuff, I wouldn't really do like celebrity impressions or things like that. I just did like weird characters.
Yeah.
And just sort of loved doing voices and accents. And so I think I just always had an ear for it. So that's why when doing Schitt's Creek and all this, doing impressions has come easier than I thought it would. Like I never really practiced Moira. It just kind of happened. And same with Alexis. Like, I think just from watching the show and no, but it's turning out to be really fun. Like I've done Britney like 3 or 4 times. I had Cher. I've done Henry Cavill, Patrick Stewart. It's this really fun to like challenge myself to get into these people's, like find their voice and their fun little mannerisms, because it's finding like their essence. It's like you don't always sound exactly like Britney, but like what's Britney's little essence? So I'm really enjoying it. But yeah, that's the big thing. Everyone's like, what's next? And it's like, I wish I had an answer.
I'm sure there's a bit of pressure with it. I'm curious too, because you were telling me before we started recording that your mom is a clinical psychologist, and talk about finding people's essence, find it for better or worse. I wonder if that has any impact on the way that you approach your characters or the way that she approaches your characters for you.
Probably. Actually, a huge influence. So my mom and I were really tight. My mom's a big nerd too. And when I was a kid, we're so weird, but there would be nights when she's a talker. And in case you haven't noticed, I'm a talker. It's impossible for me to be succenct or stay on topic
You
for more
don't
than
know
3
how
seconds.
lovely it is for me to have a talker on the podcast. You do you.
God.
It's wonderful.
Great. Like if people I feel bad I do interviews and they're like, I just spent the whole time wrangling you. My poor publicist. I'm like, I'm sorry. But my mom and I, we would do this. We would sit in her bathroom. We would like brush our teeth at night and then sit until 3 o'clock in the morning. Like I would finally sit on the floor in her bathroom and we would just talk. And, but I remember one night her talking, I was in rehearsals for some show because I started acting when I was 6, so I was in rehearsals for something and I was having a lot of trouble finding the character. And so like 10-year-old me is like, I don't know what his motivation is or something like that, or like how to find the character. And my mom, but because she's a, very successful psychologist, I think she was like, Michael, think about the little things. So like, look at me. When I talk with my eyes closed, which she does. When she's talking, you can literally walk away, get a snack, come back, and she won't
She
have
has
noticed.
no idea.
Because her eyes are closed. And she
she's
talks with
aware
her
of it.
hands.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And she's very aware of it and talks with her hands and has this mishmashy accent. She's from New York City and Long Island, but then lived in Oklahoma and London in the Midwest. She got this weird accent.
Wow. Okay.
And she's like, just those little things. If you were to play me, you would close your eyes, you would use your hands a lot, and your accent would morph depending on what you were saying. Pick those 3 things. And she was like, so for your character, pick 3 defining things and start with those. And that has actually really stuck with me. And whenever I'm playing a character, I'm kind of like that, where I work the outside in. I find their voice. Like, how does this character speak? How do they communicate? What's their tone? And then, okay, great. What's their physicality? And then sort of work outside in. As opposed to, I know so many actors who are like, my motivation, like, why am I doing this? With me, it's much more like, what am I doing with my body? And that informs how I'm feeling.
That's so interesting and such a like a fail-safe on getting into a character and then discovering the depth, however deep you want to go with the character. Is like, find your physicality, find your like, like physical accessories that you always do, and then build in deeper. Is your mom starting an acting school? Because
she should. And so much of acting, you go to drama school, half of it's group therapy anyway. You just roll on the floor and cry. You're doing a monologue and the teacher's like, well, why are you having trouble accessing this? You're like, because I was teased when I was 5.
Like, let's rub his shoulders. Everyone rub his shoulders.
So, and she's a huge movie buff and a huge theater, but she took me to my first show when I was a kid, and she grew up in New York with Broadway and all that. So, and my dad was a musician before he was a lawyer. So I'm really lucky that I grew up with parents who love the arts.
Cool.
Who were really encouraging and helpful.
That's super cool.
So, and wanted to help in any way they could. So
that's awesome. I mean, it's wild how mirroring your actual family life is of the characters that you're working on.
And our family is a lot like the Rose family. So it's like,
I mean, it sounds like it.
My dad is a lot like Johnny. My mom has her Moira moments. And my sister and I go back. My sister is actually much more David. I think I'm the Alexis of the family.
There you go. Well, I mean, the way you talk about your mom's strange accent, I'm just like, well, there it is. It's all right there.
It is. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to now get into the questions that I ask every single guest that is on the Not Too Deep. We have 2 questions. First is, who, alive or dead, would you most like to throw cold spaghetti at? Yeah.
Ooh, throw cold spaghetti at.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, part of me thinks that's not so bad because I love spaghetti and I'm always hungry. So I'd be like, sure, it's a snack. Thanks. But I imagine this is in like a not nice way. Who would I want? I mean, my first thought was a political one. I don't ever want to go there. Throw spaghetti at. That's tough.
It is a bit of a psychological question.
Realistic. I know.
Okay.
I'm moving in September. I have to move September 1st. And I just went through this whole thing trying to find an apartment. And this is where life is funny. So the day before, I was looking at apartments. This real estate agent was this whole time. She was like, "You're a shoe-in. It'll be great." And I was like, "I don't have a normal income. I'm technically a quote unquote influencer, so I don't have pay stubs, but I can afford this apartment. Right? I'll show X, Y, Z." And she was like, "Oh, don't worry, just show blah, blah, blah." We had like 2 weeks of me trying to prove that I can pay my rent. And she's like, "You're going to be good." I get invited to this big party. I meet Drew Barrymore.
I saw this on your Instagram. Yep.
Yeah. And I finally, because I was going to be on her show. Yeah. And I had already pre-taped it. So I got to meet her. I was like, Drew. And she was the nicest person. And there's all these famous celebrities and I'm looking around, people know who I am. And it was one of the first times in my life I felt, kind of like a celebrity. Yeah. It was very cool. It was neat. And, it was great. And then the next day got turned down for this apartment because they were like, you don't have proof of income. And I was like, but Drew Barrymore thinks I'm cool, but I can't get an apartment. But like, what is my, the moment you start to feel great, life comes in, it's like humble. Yep. But that real estate agent, she lied to me for 2 weeks and strung me along. And I was so mad. I had never had anyone treat me that way. And the way she shut it down was so disrespectful. And
it's frustrating.
I understand the reasons why, but she did it in such a tactless, rude way. And I've never experienced that. So I was so angry. So even then me being angry was like, ma'am, I need you to know that that was very disrespectful.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
that was me ranting.
yeah.
Um, so I'm not good at
telling her.
confrontation. I told her in a strongly worded email, but I still said all the best and best of luck in the future. Like, so
Yeah,
her, but I would love to throw me throwing spaghetti at her feels like the most aggressive thing I could do. So I'd throw spaghetti at this horrible realtor.
I love that.
Real estate agent. I would throw spaghetti at her.
I love that. I don't think there's anything that could go wrong with that. I think
Great.
it would go viral, and you'd have landlords calling you, asking you to fill their apartments after that.
Great. I film all my videos at home. I'll plug your building.
Yeah, right. Okay, the other question I ask every single guest is to tell us your worst pants shitting story or like a bathroom emergency situation. However, you can only use 3 words or small phrases to describe the event. So, for example, mine is college jogging front lawn.
Oh, thank God that you can't elaborate, because I would, and my parents would hear this. Okay, mine is first boyfriend, coffee table. Thank God for an extra pair of gym shorts.
Though I am incredibly curious about this coffee table part of this story, I dedicate myself to no follow-up questions here. Okay, now we're moving on to a section of the podcast called Deep and Hot, where I ask you a deep question that we prepared for you and for a hot take on something. So let's get into our deep question first, which you've kind of touched on a little bit, but I'm curious how you answer this. When did you first see your parents as just the people that they are?
Ooh, when did I first see my parents as just the people that they are?
I mean, it sounds like you're 6 years old on the bathroom floor talking to your mom about developing stage characters. So it might have been then.
Maybe. I mean, it was when I was in a play when I was like 9, and they talked about blowjobs, and bless her heart, I got in the car to rehearsal, and I was like, Mom, what's a blowjob? And I give her so much credit. I got the full sex talk when I was 9.
Wow.
She was brilliant. But when did I first see my parents as truly the people that they are? So this is deep, and I'll try not to get too long because it's a long story. But so my uncle, one of my mom's brothers, was a fireman, and he was killed in 9/11.
Oh, wow.
And it's actually this ring that I wear, because he saved all of his men and another company of men, and then stayed behind with a paraplegic and a paraplegic's best friend, and they were killed in the second tower. But my mom was really close with him. He was and he was just missing for a week. We didn't know where he was because all of his men got out. Yeah. And all of them survived. And he was like, I'm right behind you. I'm right behind you. I'm leaving. And then didn't. Wow. And he was one of the last phone calls we made. He called his best friend. And he was like, I'm not in the building. I'm around the corner. So none of us knew where he was. And my dad was on a work trip in North Carolina when it all happened. And my dad did like the mom in Home Alone to just get home. And
you mean Catherine O'Hara?
Catherine O'Hara. You know how she goes through like all those hoops just to get home? His story of getting home from North Carolina because he couldn't fly and you couldn't go anywhere. Wow. But he works for the Attorney General's office. He's a lawyer. And so he got like a sheriff to drive him to one point and then another cop to drive him to this point, and then had this frantic drive home. But my sister and I kind of had to be there. My mom was so distraught. Mm-hmm. And there's something about seeing them in that way, because both my parents are very very traditional, as non-traditional as we can be. They're very traditional parents where they were like, we are the parents. So I'd never seen my mom break. And that was the first time I saw her cry like that. Like there was a moment where I think it hit her a couple of days in that he had died and he wasn't coming back. And I remember her sitting down, putting her head in her hands and just starting to cry. Wow. And I looked at my sister and we just didn't know what to do at first in that moment, because both my parents are very strong people. Mm-hmm. They got married when they were 21 years old. Like their life story is insane. And both of them had crazy childhoods, and they're incredibly strong people. And so watching her in that moment,
the vulnerability,
because she had to, she just couldn't. Yeah. And knowing and talking to my dad every day and having him go on this journey to get home. Because my dad's a very quiet person, a silently strong man. And to have him do something that like, I am getting home. Yeah. Was also a little out of character in some way. I mean, now that I see, it's not out of character.
Sure.
Now that I've gotten to know my dad better, of course he would move mountains to get home like that. And of course he would, and I remember the moment he walked in the house, the relief. And then, but there was a vulnerability to my parents in that moment and a strength in both of them that I'd never seen. And I think that's when I was like, oh no, you're not just like mom and dad, you're people.
That there's a deep complexity to them.
Yeah. And, and that's one of those moments that you never forget, and an experience like that stays with you forever. Yeah, I would say that's when I saw that they were like,
whew. Thank you for sharing. I mean, that's an incredible story, and also is very understandable as to like the bond that you have with your parents, in the current day, that they are able to be vulnerable and able to be resilient at the same time in the face of unexpected tragedy. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Not to shift the focus.
No, that's fine. I feel so bad. I felt like the energy was like, it's like, I guess we went listening. I never talk about this. The first interview I've ever brought that up in. I usually don't, because it is heavy.
But I appreciate the story so much, and like sharing. I'm just like, I forget that I'm recording a podcast with you. I just feel like we're friends talking about this. And like, tell me more.
You're so good at your job, because I honestly fully forgot. I was like, I feel like we're just chatting.
I just saw a little thing on my laptop being like, you're recording. I was like, oh shit, right. Okay, here we go. Okay, now I'm going to ask for your hot take.
Right.
And it kind of goes into everything you're talking about with your mom. So, what is it about the character of Moira that captivates people? What do you think the essence is? Like, what is that core thing?
Yeah, I think there's something about Moira that goes hand in hand with a lot of other great female characters that we love, like Lucille Bluth, like Karen Walker, like Blanche Devereaux. These strong, kind of eccentric women who are so unapologetically themselves, but have big hearts. They're good people. Like Karen Walker is, she's Karen, but at the end of the day, she always will do the right thing. Yeah. And that's why I think Moira, she says what's on her mind. She has the courage to say the things that nobody else would. But she's so tactful about it that she's never mean. And she's got a heart as big as her vocabulary, which is saying something. And she's so unapologetically whimsical and just owns all of her eccentricities. To her, it's not strange. To her, this is just life. And I think that's something that we all wish we could be, is that I think a lot of us are too self-conscious to really let our quote unquote sort of like freak flag fly and say what's on our minds. And I feel like there's something about her where she does, but in a way that's never malicious. And I think that's what I love about her. And I think is so sort of inspirational about that character. Like, who has the courage to dress like a witchy vampire with 3 wigs or 2 wigs on their heads and use that accent? But then at the end of the day, she also is always uplifting. It's
harmless. Her authenticity is
she'll
harmless.
Cut you down, but then pick you back up in a better way. And I feel like that's a lot of those sort of iconic women in TV and film are kind of like that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that analysis of this. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to take one last break. When we get back, we have a question submitted by a listener/viewer that could use some advice from you and I as to wild unprofessionals in the world of doing life. So
amazing.
We'll be right back with more Not Too Deep.
Not too deep. With Grace Helbig.
Okay, Michael, we have a question that I thought, based on your life experience, you might have some interesting advice for. So this comes from someone named Kate. They said they're 20 years old. They're a senior at Temple University in Philly. They're currently a psychology major with a dance minor, but they've realized that they want to dance professionally after graduation and not pursue something psych-related at the moment. Do you think your degree has set you up for anything that has happened in your career? My parents are pressuring me to go straight to grad school to do something psych-related, but obviously I don't want to do that. I'm currently mid-existential crisis, so anything about any of this will be helpful. Thank you so much, bestie, which I've learned from TikTok is the way everyone talks to each other now.
Oh, is it? I just thought everyone was my best friend. I'm so naive.
So what kind of thoughts do you have around this? That this person is a psychology degree, but rather than taking a further route in psychology, they're more curious in their dance minor and exploring that for the time being. Again, they're 20 years old. And so, thoughts?
So my first thought is like, I have a lot of friends who are dancers and because from doing so much musical theater. And so if you're going to do dance, you want to do it when you're 20 years old while your body is still in great shape.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're going to pursue it, this is the time to do it.
Yeah.
And I think super smart to, get that other degree in psychology because, acting, dancing, any of the arts, it's a tough business and, it's so hard to really make a living doing it. So if you can have any backup skills, any backup knowledge that will only help you, maybe you can find a better day job than, I don't know, waiting tables. Although I liked waiting tables. I was terrible at it, but it was fun.
Same.
But that's my thing is like, life is short, life is so short and it's so precious. And if you can pursue dancing and still, not be homeless, if you can have a life while pursuing that dream of being a dancer, then now is the time to do it. And if you have that bachelor's in psychology, you can always go back and get another degree. It's never too late to go back to grad school, maybe be a dancer for 10 years. And then you're like 32 and you're like, I had a dance career. It was magical and wonderful. And I traveled and I did all that stuff. And now I want to settle down and have a more sort of routine life. Let me go back to school. My sister's 37 and is a very successful engineer. And now she's potentially going back to get a PhD in something completely different.
Wow.
So also she's brilliant. It's like a PhD in biomedical engineering and she's going to cure cancer. Like the smartest person I know. So
your
it's like,
family can't chill out on being just ridiculous. Like the greatest citizens.
My sister's an absurd overachiever, but, I'm the goofy one. She's the smart one. Well, she's hilarious too. But goes to show like she would finish her PhD when she's like 44. Who cares? You do what you love. And that's what my thing is. I think life's too short to do something that you're not going to enjoy. So if dancing brings you joy, then go dance.
I 100,000% agree with all that, especially like truly your brain is going to be there for years. Your body might not be in the way that you want. And also the fact that you're even questioning this at 20 years old is not an existential crisis. It's literally like you are being ahead of your own curve of going, if I have this pang in the back of my brain that I am minoring in dance, that's how much I care about it. Like try that for a bit. And then come back to the actual schoolwork that will, like you said, always be there for you.
For sure. And also, like, as someone who went to grad school in his late 20s, I loved being a grad student later because I had life experience and I knew better what I wanted. I think, and I knew a couple of people who went straight to grad school at like 22. You're 22, you don't know what you want. Your frontal lobes aren't even fully developed. Your ability to foresee consequence is not there.
You're right, yeah.
That was one of the best things my mom told me when I was young. Every time I screwed up and I was like, it's because my frontal lobes aren't fully developed. I couldn't foresee the consequence of this decision. And it's true. I know women develop faster than men, neurologically speaking, but still you're 20, I think the best grad student, I think it's much more useful to go back a little bit later. You've had some life experience, you've lived, and then you'll know maybe psychology and dance, neither are what you want. Maybe you get into the world and you're like, I want to be a stylist. That's what I want to do. I'm 28 and I'm going to become a stylist now. It's never too late to change. So I say, follow your passion because you're young at 20, do it.
Look,
and then figure out later.
I'm about to be 36 and I'm in a graduate program right now because I've like done the artist thing for a bit, experienced that. And now I want to go have a structured learning environment for a bit. And it is really nice to be going now at 35, almost 36 versus 26, where I didn't know what the fuck I was doing or why I was doing it. And so now, just having a bit of experience in the world, I think is the better situation to go to graduate school. You have more of like a foundation and you can be a little bit more present with the work at hand rather than just being like, this is what I know how to do is school.
And a much better sense of self. You have a better idea of what you want.
Totally. So, Michael, this has been so fun. You're so easy to talk to. I feel like I could spend another like 3 hours just go shooting the shit about all of it and also unearthing more traumatic theater experiences that you've had.
Oh, there's so many.
Before we wrap up completely, we like to gift our guest a personalized horoscope from us to you that we have created specifically for you. I think Melissa is going to put it in the chat for you if you'd like to read that out loud for us. And if you're on your phone, whatever you need to do.
Yes. Got it. You just went away, but I'm on the chat.
Right.
I'm probably going to look crazy because now that I can't see myself, I forget I'm on camera. Okay. Try not to do anything weird. Okay. Dear Gemini, twins of the stars, Leo opposing Saturn in Aquarius may have had you feeling frustrated by hard to understand new ideas. But the key is to keep trying, keep learning, and admit we're all fucking dumb regardless. Great advice.
There you go.
How are these always so spot on? They're just vague enough where you're like, oh my God, it's true.
That's literally what I'm going through right now.
It is.
Michael, where can people find you and everything that you're up to if they don't already know?
They can follow me on Instagram and the TikToks at mjudsonberry, MJUDSONBERRY. And they can follow me on the tweeters at mjudson1berry, mjudson1berry, because I created a Twitter account a long time ago and I don't know how to get back in and change it. So, or access it. So I'm mjudson1berry on Twitter because I'm that technologically incompetent. And I'm on YouTube if you just look up Michael Judson Berry or Quarantine Time.
Awesome. Go check out everything that he's doing. He's walking tall. He's ordering his decaf coffee confidently. So anything is possible. Keep tabs on this brilliant, brilliant artist. Again, thank you, Michael, for making time and chatting with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Of course. And we'll see you guys next time on another episode of Not Too Deep. Goodbye.
Too deep, too deep, too deep, not too deep with Grace Helbig.
Not Too Deep is a production of Grace Helbig Incorporated, producer Melissa D. Montz, edited by Shireen Lani Yunus, post-production sound by Chris Henry, and an extra special thanks to Flula for the theme music.